We're going to teach you the activities you should do and the topics you should write about, but we also want you to understand the 3 key concepts that inform our teaching, because then you'll be able to answer your own questions as you prepare your applications. So, here are the 3 key concepts. First, intellectual vitality. Second, points of excellence. And third, texture. If you master and apply these concepts, you'll be light years ahead of most other students. At Stanford, I read an application from a valedictorian at one of the best high schools in the country. His application was exceptional. Grades, testing, activities, letters of recommendation, all stand out. But we denied him. And I remember his counselor called and was upset and pushed me to provide an explanation. Now, I couldn't tell her at the time, but I'll share the reason with you now. The student wrote his personal essay on breaking up with his girlfriend. It was a total miss. Look, I totally get how meaningful this moment was for him, and I totally understand why he wrote about it. The Common Application calls the prompt the personal essay, and so many schools tell you they want to hear about who you are as a person. So writing about a personal, meaningful moment like a breakup seems like just as good an essay as others, right? But it's not. It's a deal breaker for college admissions. To understand intellectual vitality, we need to solve this breakup essay puzzle. And let me give you a hint by asking this obvious but overlooked question. When you apply to college, what are you applying to do? Think about that for a second. You're applying to be a university student who works with college professors. Do you know what college professors are like? Some of you may have met one, but many of you probably haven't. They are some of the smartest and most intellectually curious people on the planet. Stanford's faculty includes more than, 20 Pulitzer Prize winners and Nobel laureates. I mean, these people devote their lives to reading, writing, and learning about super specific topics within their field. They live in libraries and classrooms. In short, college professors are students who love school so much, they became professional students. And you're applying to work with them. How will you work with them? You read books, right? You attend class and you debate ideas. You write papers for them. You conduct research with them. But at most schools, professors don't select the students they get to work with. Who does? An admission officer, right? So admission officers work primarily for professors. That's key. Imagine you're an admission officer at Stanford, and you go talk to one of these Pulitzer Prize winning professors, and you ask them, hey, I'm selecting students for next year. Who do you want me to select to fill your classroom? What do you think they say? I know because they've told me. Find me the smartest, most intellectually curious students who ideally are passionate about my academic discipline. In other words, they want you to select students like them. Makes sense, right? So now you can solve the breakup essay puzzle. Why was that a deal breaker for applying to college? Because my Stanford professors, they don't care about a breakup. I mean, they do, of course, as a human being, but as a professor, they care about ideas. They care about intelligence. They want me to find students who have so much passion for philosophy or physics or psychology that it's glowing hot off everything in your application. So, you can't burn an essay on a breakup because some other student who has the same straight A's and top scores is writing about how they became obsessed with Aristotle after studying his Nicomachean Ethics. So obsessed that they started learning ancient Greek to read his other texts in the original language. Now, who do you think my philosophy professor wants me to admit? The straight A student who wrote a touching personal piece on a breakup? Or the budding Greek philosopher? It makes sense, right? Okay, so we understand the logic. Now, let's define the specific trait we're looking for. This academic passion, I said, that's glowing hot off the page. The phrase we used at Stanford to capture this idea was intellectual vitality. What is intellectual vitality, or IV? And that's what we're going to call it for the rest of the course, IV. We've talked about it, and you probably have a sense for it now, but this is the key trait you need to show in your applications. So let's get a working definition on the table. IV is palpable academic energy that shows up in college applications as raw intelligence, authentic joy for learning, or striking thoughtfulness. Princeton and UCLA, they call this trait simply intellectual curiosity. And to be clear, this is not some nice to have. Stanford specifically rates you on how much IV you have, and other schools look for it too. For example, let's look at Harvard's reading procedures for the class of 2023. This is the actual guidance Harvard gives to its admission readers to rate your academic potential. Stanford's is similar. For a Harvard admission reader to give you a 1, which means exceptional, a clear admit, you need to show them you're a genuine scholar. In Stanford terms, your IV's off the charts. In Admitium terms, you're like a college professor. Okay, so we solved the breakup essay puzzle and we figured out the logic behind IV. Now it's time to apply it. First, let's start with activities. We'll cover this in detail in class 4, but let's start to think through it real quick right now. Now look, I know you do sports, volunteer work, clubs, and that is great for you as a human being. And I'm not advising you to stop any of them, but you should consider prioritizing your time and getting tactical for college admissions. What activities should you do to demonstrate IV? Academic activities. In other words, all the things we just talked about that professors do, right? Let's hit 3 of them. First, you should do research. If you're into biology, contact a college lab to do an internship researching genomes. If you're into psychology, email a professor who's studying happiness and ask to get involved. And if you're into history, ask your AP history teacher to supervise you in a research paper on the intellectual history of meritocracies, right? Second, you should write draft essays, poetry, and articles on whatever ideas, people, or activities interest you the most. Dark matter, Achilles, high-stakes poker, and swing big. Submit your writing to competitions like Young Lions or periodicals like Harper's. Even better, the college newspaper at your goal school. Third, take more classes. This is obvious, right? If you want to show off your chops as a standout student, go above and beyond your high school curriculum. For example, take Yale's most popular course on the science of well-being. It's online. You can study French at a community college or on an app. Subscribe to Masterclass and learn how to write humor from David Sedaris. All of those activities showcase IV. Okay, the second main way to show IV in your applications is your writing. The writing is where you'll really sell an admission reader on having IV. And again, we're going to talk about this in much more detail in the writing classes. But let's do a preview now so you start to get your hands around the material. How do you show IV in your writing? First, by writing about what you want to study. Don't overcomplicate this. Remember, you're asking a school to hire you to be a scholar who works with their scholars. So write about why Hemingway's Movable Feast inspired you to want to study creative writing, or Clarence Darrow's performance during the Scopes monkey trial inspired you to want to study law. Second, another expert way to show IV is by tying together seemingly unrelated ideas. This is the signature move of one of my favorite people and the patron saint of IV, Malcolm Gladwell. He does it basically every episode of his podcast, Revisionist History. In one episode, he ties together the Jesuits in Rome with the Yankees in the Bronx to show how a Jesuit reasoning method should exonerate a Yankees ace shamed for steroid use. In another, he ties a Robert Frost poem to circular migration. The IV is so hot, you can hear it, right? Those are the kind of moves you want to make. And we're going to talk a lot about Gladwell. In all seriousness, after this class, when you're getting ready to write, you should go listen to his podcast. It's one of the best things you could do to get your juices going to write your college essays. Because if Malcolm Gladwell submitted any one of his episodes as a college essay, he would get in wherever he wanted. Finally, show IV by writing about a super specific, obscure academic idea that you find fascinating. By choosing something novel to write about, you're going to sound like someone who knows all about a field and has picked out a gem for the reader. So not mathematics, but Hilbert's paradox of the Grand Hotel. Not US history, but Turner's frontier thesis. Make sense? Okay, we'll have a lot more to say about IV throughout this course, but it's one of the 3 critical concepts. And if you only take away 3 points, here's what I want you to remember. First, you need to demonstrate IV. And students with IV are scholars who love learning and have palpable academic energy, raw intelligence, and unusual thoughtfulness. Second, you show IV by doing activities that professors do: research, writing, taking classes. Third, you show IV by writing about the subjects you want to study that you find important, by tying together unrelated ideas like Gladwell, and by writing about specific, novel topics. That's IV. And while it's the critical concept, there's a second one that's almost as important, and it's up next: points of excellence.